I am here for another cosmic tea. I'm super excited because I did notes. Like, I used to do notes when I was first learning how to read charts specifically. I don't know what I did really in terms of like learning tarot, but when I first started reading charts, I would read charts for people for free, and I would take notes of their chart ahead of time because I needed to reference my book, which was Parker's Astrology at the time. And I like have this chart where I would like write where things were and figure it out. Like, it's actually like a mathematic process that I personally would do to figure out like what's going on in a chart. And yeah, I don't need to do that anymore, but I can see how it would be helpful to me coming back to a state of learning, because I will say this much, like, if you're considering yourself an expert on something, then like that's great that you know like pretty much all there is to know, or pretty much all that is like known on a subject, or like whatever. But like, that's the point of being a professor, is that like if you're a good or rather, let me put it like this, researcher. So if you're an academic, basically you have a few different ways that you can go to continue that kind of work. And one of those ways, which is actually included in all of the ways, especially if you're someone who wants a PhD, you are going to want to be a researcher, potentially. You are going to potentially want to be a professor. Those are jobs for academics. And so if you are somebody like myself who is a sage, like I am interested in cultivating wisdom and create, like, you could also be an archivist, you could like, you know, help with operations at a museum, that sort of thing. But give me a second. Yeah, let's pray ourselves in real quick. Okay, so, what was I saying? Yeah, so academics have like a few different options available to them. And I know this because I am a sage. I am a wisdom keeper. Those are amongst other things, of course, but like that is, I'm a research-driven artist. Let's put it that way. And the place that you want to be when you are considered an expert is in an experimental state. What does this mean? This means that honestly, if you're not progressing the boundaries of awareness, then what the fuck are you even doing? You're not contributing anything, because anybody could read what you said in a book. You know what I mean? Like, you're not actually advancing anything. Like, you're not aligned with the nature of the universe, because the nature of the universe is expansion. Literally, the universe is expanding. Quantum physically, It is. That's a fact, okay? So if you're not contributing to that, you're just staying stagnant, the waters of your practice are just going to become foul and diseased. You will become foul and diseased, and all of, you know, your relationships in this world will become foul and diseased. You'll probably become a bitter person because, like, you are experiencing this foul, diseased energy. And it just is what it is, you know what I mean? Like, I think this really brings us to the point of, like, this energy that we're engaging with this week. And I guess I'll just read some of my notes. The process of trusting oneself. So this fear that, like, is manifesting in the collective, that, you know, there are some people in the collective who are not willing to progress past this boundary of fear. There's some hot water here. I'm gonna actually make myself a little tea. There are some of us in the collective who are engaging with this energy, and the energy is a very fearful energy. With the Pluto, the placement of Pluto right now, Pluto is in Capricorn, and Fortuna is there at, Pluto is at 6 degrees retrograde in Capricorn, 6 degrees and 5 seconds in the 12th house. And we also have here Fortuna at 16 degrees in Capricorn. Okay, so Fortuna is actually outside of the phases of the Sabian symbols. So Pluto is in phase 1, Fortuna is in phase 2. And I know that because I have, like, the phases open right now. Capricorn, I said 16 degrees. Yeah, I want to know what the Sabian symbol for this is. So first of all, first level, actional, phase 286, Capricorn, 16 degrees, school grounds filled with people, children in gymnasium suits. The need for physical activity and play, especially in adolescence. And so this is going to help a lot with exercising our energy right now. And it's literally exercising our bodies. And I'm not saying exercise with 2 E's. I'm saying exercise like exorcism. Okay, so our movement is going to bring us relief. It's going to bring us relief from the stuck energy in our bodies, because we know that with top to bottom manifestation, what happens in the spiritual realm metastasizes. It goes through the brain to the mind, to the emotional body, which is going to be more so in our sacral. And how do we clarify our sacral? Through our throat chakra, by expressing, and also by, like, you know, expression. And there's also associated with that expulsion, and that has to do with Pluto, which rules Scorpio, which is a planet of expulsion, exorcism, exorcising the demons of our past. And that is to say, our karma. Not for nothing, we have Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. That is all karmic. That is all karmic. And so we have to get active in order to reap the benefits of this period that we're in. Because yes, it's challenging, but there are benefits. There are always benefits. And this is why I tell y'all that we have to look for the opportunities. We have to look at life and our experiences and the situations that we find ourselves in as opportunities. And these are opportunities for forward advancement. These are opportunities for expansion. These are opportunities for growth. But more than anything, because I think that that is a hyper masculine, hyper like cis heteropatriarchy is really implicated here. We have the deep, powerful implication of capitalism and productivity culture. And so I want to bring it back to a decolonized space and talk about it from there and understand that, you know, it's really about evolution. And evolution is about progress. It's not about regression. It's not about devolution. And I love the word devolution because to devolve, what is the point of that? There's no point, especially because, as I said, the nature of the universe is expansion. It's progress. Devolution, devil, right? The evolution of the devil. Then we're relapsing. We're collapsing into our bones. That's something that I learned from Yoga with Adrian. Like, have integrity in your practice. Do not collapse into your bones. And bones having to do with Capricorn. Capricorn having to do with time, narrative, karma. Karma being the Sanskrit word for action. Those are actions that have already happened. So relapsing into those old actions, creating more of those narratives, spinning more of those narratives. So spider imagery comes into play here. And this is about being wily. This is about being discerning. This is potentially even about being cunning. But there's nothing wrong with being cunning. The reason why this society has a problem with being cunning is because this society promotes sociopathy and psychopathy. This society is a narcissistic society that encourages us who are not the plutocrats to be dumb and docile. So being cunning, being aware, then we would be like them. We would be discerning like them, and we would be hip to their game, wise to their jive, right? Keen to their grift. And we would not be willing participants in the shifting of power that they propagate, which is to say that we we give them our power. We don't have to. The thing is, they could really do anything, and they have. You see it happening. They do. They have no scruples. They'll do anything to promote the destruction of well-being and wellness because they want to exploit. And it's not for material gain like people think it is. The highest of the high in terms of this demonic shadow empire structure are not doing it for material gain. They are doing it to gain power in these lower vibrational realms because they can't access any other realms. And their currency is energy, particularly emotional energy. Okay, and what do I tell y'all? In order to be controlled in the emotional, in the energetic, or causal, I think it might be called, energetic body, and in the physical realm, then you must be controlled mentally. Because the mental is the filter between the ethereal and the divine, the ethereal, therefore the divine, and these other lower densities. Okay? So there's a reason why this false matrix structure, which I depict as an upside down pentagram that has 5 pillars, spiritualism first, cis heteropatriarchy, anti-indigeneity, anti-blackness, white dominance, and racism. That's 3. Capitalism, and then industrialism. There's a reason why those are ideologies that are forced upon us. And guess what? They don't have to beat it into us as much anymore, because we are so indoctrinated that we police ourselves and that we police others. And this warps the third eye. I'm seeing the Hierophant card in the Cosmic Tarot, so I'll grab that out and I'll show y'all what that looks like. Devil in reverse here, boo. The third eye, we navigate because the heart center, the heart chakra, is the center of the 𝗪𝗁𝗃𝗀. It is the center of the masculine and feminine energies. Okay, and it's seeking balance, it's seeking harmony. But look, this, no doubt that it's the Hierophant. Control, this card is also called the Pope in other, Five of Pentacles in reverse in the Tower. This card is also called the Pope in other not Smith Rider-Waite decks. Okay? I'm gonna turn my notifications. Oh, well, we're getting tons and tons of dings right now. So understand that the 𝗪𝗁𝗃𝗀 is seeking harmony, and we seek that harmony through our heart chakra because someone doesn't want me to tell y'all what is up. My throat chakra is doing crazy things. They don't want you to be aware. They don't want you to be cognizant. They don't want you to be self-sovereign. They don't want you to be in harmony because they benefit from disharmony, because they're hoping that they can generate so much energy that they can break free of the lower vibrations and the lower densities, not understanding that that's not how you ascend. And guess what? These entities have brokered deals in the 3D. And they broker deals with who? The lineages, spiritual and bloodline lineages, esoteric lineages, what have you, of the plutocratic powers. And so they are the architects and arbiters of the false matrix and the demonic shadow empire. They're the ones who maintain the demonic shadow empire. Okay? I'm shuffling these cards just because shuffling helps me, but I'm not trying to get anything from these cards. So, the Hierophant, Four of Cups in reverse, Ten of Pentacles in reverse. So what this means is, like, by feeling our feelings, we're able to actually find harmony. We're able to have intuition. We're able to have discernment. But when we're not, we're not. And so, yes, there is this desire for mind control within this structure, this false matrix demonic shadow empire structure. And this is why decolonization of the mind is so important, because decolonization of the mind leads to decolonization of every other aspect of our lives. And then we can do the deep dive soul retrieval. And then we can do the deep dive work of becoming self-sovereign. But this is the point of this week's energy. And I feel like it's been going on for a couple of months, actually, is there's becoming a very clear divide of people who are willing to stand up and do that work versus, and I wouldn't actually say versus, actually, it's just a clear distinction, really. There are those who are willing to do that work and are willing to be courageous and, you know, embody, because we had Strength card on the bottom of this deck when we first pulled it out, to really do that work and show up for themselves. Because it's really like, when you show up for yourself, then you show up for the collective as well. But when we're self-abandoning, we are not showing up for the collective. Remember, because we are a part of the collective. So anything that we do for ourselves that is benefiting ourselves in a holistic, integrated way is also doing that for the collective. And in those small ways, we change the very biological, chemical, spiritual, emotional, mental makeup, top to bottom makeup of the collective. So it's actually detrimentally selfish to not do these things. And here's the part about compassion though, because that's really important. You know, 2 of Pentacles. 4 of Cups in reverse and 10 of Pentacles in reverse tells me that we're coming to the end of this emotional process where we've been really stuck inside, stuck in the house type energy. It's kind of like, you know, sure, quarantine ended, but we've still been in a spiritual isolation. We've still been in a spiritual quarantine. And you know, during quarantine, I don't know how it was for y'all, but in New York, it was like, there were people still going on dates. They would have dates on the stoop, people's stoops. We get 4 of Pentacles in reverse and we get 7 of Wands. Because it is an embattled energy, but people were still going on dates. You know, I have a friend who like was shocked when he got monkeypox. And it's like, dude, you are having so much indiscriminate sex. Like, of course you got monkeypox. Like, I'm not disturbed by the fact that you have monkeypox. I'm disturbed by the fact that you are shocked that you got it. Because why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? He was also shocked when he got C-19. It's like, well, you don't wear a mask on the train. Like, that's the one place that I would say, like, do wear one. Not even because of that, but it's like, honestly, anytime I go on the New York subway, I'm gonna wear a mask moving forward. It's just so disgusting down there. Like, I'm gonna wear a mask. You know, there's skin particles. When that hot air blows through the tunnel, there's skin particles in there. So I'm gonna wear a mask. And he's shocked about these things, but did not take any precautions. And believe what you want to believe, but that was his experience. Okay, and I didn't care that he got sick so much as that he was shocked by it. And so I don't remember how I got down this thoroughfare. Monkeypox. Oh, spiritual isolation. Yeah, like we have maybe been there have been times where we may have felt really desperate for connection in this hermit mode that many of us have been in. And that, you know, we got to remember feelings aren't facts. Feelings are not facts. Just because we feel alone doesn't mean that we are actually. When we are tuned into the spiritual realms, we understand that like we're never alone. 10 of Swords. I'm going to explain more about these cards, but Spirit just wants me to like go down this road. We're never alone, you know, and when we actually, I don't want to, Spirit is saying transgress our boundaries. And I want to say it that way because we might think that we're doing things the wrong way because it's triggering our fears. But we have to step out past the boundaries of our fears because 99.9% of our fears are manufactured by the false matrix. As I said, during colonization, you know, from the Hellenic Empire, colonizing, you know, the Levant, Egypt even, and then going and colonizing the tribes of Europe, and then going and colonizing the rest of the world. They knew how to colonize the rest of the world because they first did it to the tribes of Europe. And colonization ended, I know people whose grandparents lived under the rule of colonization. I've met them. So it's not something that happened so long ago. They're not even like crazy, crazy old. They're in their 70s. They're still functional adults. You know what I mean? So I think that because of fear to accept the truth, fear to accept reality on reality's terms, which is self-sabotage and self-abuse. Because of fear, we want to think that it was so far away and that like it's kind of a legendary fairy tale thing, but it's not. So they tested all of these forms of colonization to figure out what works best. And, you know, of course, the epigenetic memory, the epigenetic trauma memory of the abuse creates the witch's wound. And I didn't come up with that term, but I cannot remember who did. I apologize. I need to research that, so that, because I talk about it fairly often, I need to figure out who, I need to remember what her name was. But it creates the witch's wound. And that is not only our personal karmic memory and Akashic memory of persecution in past lives, but here's something tangible for the science girlies out there who are like, I don't want to hear about that stuff. The epigenetic trauma, the inherited traumatized DNA that lives in our bodies from the effects of colonization on our ancestors. Oh my God, ancestors, that's so like nebulous. No, it's not. It's literally not. It's literally not. Science tells us it goes 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. That breadth is what we really ought to be conscientious and cognizant of. And if our DNA can be changed negatively in just one lifetime, and I've talked about this before, my siblings are 12, 9, and 2 years older than me. Before I was born, my parents had my eldest sibling, and then especially my mom went through serious traumas in which both of her parents were, trigger warning here. I'll give you a second to close your ears, and I'll give this sign when I'm done saying it. My mom's both of her parents were murdered. After my brother was born, I think both of my eldest siblings, but at the very least, definitely my first eldest sibling. And so, actually, yeah, if you're traumatized by this, I'm also going to talk about like some other violent traumas. So just wait for that signal again. And so my DNA, and then she and my father created trauma to one another because of her traumas. And just overall, because my family went through civil war, overall, the entire family, the entire country was experiencing these different traumas. Okay? And so, epigenetically, I have different DNA than my brother and my eldest sister. That is a scientific, biological fact. I have different things that I need to heal than them. Okay, so we have to understand those things. But just as much as that is true, it can be healed. And that trauma and that destruction and that aberration of the DNA can be rectified. Because if it can be changed negatively, it can also be changed positively. Okay, so that 4 of Cups energy in the reverse, I feel like it is the removal. You know, it's time to stop wallowing in the past. This is really what it's about, these like old timelines that we are addicted to. Queen of Swords in reverse, 3 of Cups. Yeah, like, we can't ignore these stories and timelines forever, but like, it's time to just move past it. And there's a fear, right? There's a fear that many of us have. That's what I was talking about. Essentially is like, there are very good reasons. There are very real, normal reasons to be afraid. But if you continue to live in fear, you're only gonna harm yourself, because your consciousness is continuing to expand, whether you like it or not. Hi. Your consciousness is continuing to expand, whether you like it or not, beyond the boundaries of your fear. And the longer that you stay in that space of fear and make yourself smaller than you really are. I tweeted this, I think Thursday. You're not gonna be a big fish in a little pond anymore, because honestly, that's you living below your potential. Nor are you going to be a little fish in a big pond, because I mean, we're always going to be a little fish in a big pond, to be honest. But like, this is really about your mind state, right? This is about consciousness. You've been that little fish in that big pond. And you've progressed to becoming a big fish. And going into, we're going to be a big fish in a big pond. Okay? So being the big fish in the little pond, that is played. That is so played. Like, okay, where's the challenge in that? Where's the glory in that? Where's the story in that even? You know what I mean? I was a little fish in a big pond when I moved to New York when I was 17 years old. And I quickly adapted. And guess what? That adaptation, like, I was living so beneath my level. Already I was living so beneath my consciousness. Like, I was super into fashion. I was very avant-garde. I was very different. I just was. My mom went to FIT also. So I grew up with, like, all of my siblings. We were always into aesthetics. Her dad went to the Art Institute of Chicago. Her dad was one of the most famous sculptors in our country. Very talented artist, art professor, you know what I mean? And, you know, designer. And so, like, we were all very into aesthetics. And being the big fish in the small pond, consciousness-wise, where I grew up, was extremely painful for me because I was mocked and ridiculed. And that's the policing. That's why the DSE, the demonic shadow empire, does not need to beat and brutalize us the way that they had to during the earlier waves of colonization, because it's so ingrained in our minds and in our bodies that we police ourselves and we police others. And guess what? Likely, like, there's a lot of communities. I was just talking to this woman, this trans woman, Puerto Rican in New York, and she was talking about her cousin being very flamboyantly queer. And literally he was beaten into submission to that. He learned he no longer was his vibrant, true, authentic self. And he ended up drinking himself to death. Like, literally. Because he was not allowed to shine his light for the world to see. Okay, and I talk about this a lot lately. Like, the people around me would shame me for being very vocal about my truth online. And sure, there was a maladapted way that I was doing that, because I was also, like, it was a cry for help in a lot of ways. I really wanted help so desperately. I really wanted to end my suffering so desperately without harming myself that I didn't care if how people perceived me. I was gonna do what I had to do. So I talked about my feelings online. And that is how I started to, like, find an online community on Tumblr, on Twitter. At that time, Instagram didn't exist yet. But then, you know, once Instagram existed, then I got Instagram. And then the next wave became, like, somehow became also, well, I guess people were still not hip to Instagram yet, so Facebook, and it was called Weird Facebook. And you would just add anybody who looked weird like you. And we made connections all over the country, all over the world. I was becoming friends with people in Europe who I'd never met before, and we just, like, vibed because we saw one another being our authentic selves, and we were like, yes, I fuck with that. Let's be friends. And we cultivated community that way. You know what I mean? I had no idea who these people were, and it turned out that a lot of these people were actually really successful in their fields. And that was pretty dope, because when we did meet in person, like, we had a lot of fun. Those were my scene days. But I say that to say, you know, I found the community that I needed to find at that time, because I would not let the fear of alienation stop me. They were already alienating me. They were already scapegoating me. And though I didn't have the words for that, I knew how I felt. And nobody was going to, by by the grace of my higher power, I would not let anyone tell me that my feelings were wrong. And everyone tried to, and I would not allow it. And that really is by the grace of my higher power. My ancestors protected me. My spirits, the fairies, they all played with me. They like told me like, and I wasn't consciously aware of this, but like that's what was going on. And they kept me safe and they kept me sane. So why should I trust 3D false matrix indoctrinated people versus the spirit realm that has kept me alive this long, when I couldn't keep myself alive? You know what I mean? And so Spirit is saying, like, it's not worth it to be a big fish in a little pond, because that's just some hierarchical BS. You want to be at the top of the pyramid so badly that you don't even want to be around people who are going to help you grow. Growth is uncomfortable. You got to get out of your comfort zone to get what it is you want. What is it you want? I don't need to know what it is you want. You can tell me what it is you want, and I hope that you get it. I genuinely do. I genuinely do. And I don't have to know you to hope that you get it. That's what unconditional love is on a human level. And we have to understand the nature of agapic unconditional love. And we have to understand compassion enough that sick people who cause so much harm and so much suffering are sick, and they need healing, and they need to get well, and they need to be exorcised. Maybe out of the collective. I don't know. But that's what they need. And you know what? I hope that they get it. I don't want any more harm for them. I hope that they get exactly what they need. And I don't need to interact with them. I don't like them. I don't want to interact with them. But I have enough love and compassion for them that I hope that they get exactly what they need, not what they want. Okay, so there's a lot about forgiveness coming up. A lot about forgiving others who have hurt us because their consciousness is so much smaller than us. To them, they are the right-sized fish in the right-sized pond. But actually, they don't even understand that they themselves are a big fish in a little pond. Understand that. They don't understand that they're in prison. Why? Because deep down they know, but they refuse. They refuse to face that truth because they've done such a good job of building this world around them based on this false matrix. And they don't want to lose that. Progress is scary. You gotta lose a bunch of stuff that you were really attached to, which is why Buddhism talks about non-attachment. This is not to say don't love anything, don't have feelings for anything. Grief is gonna come, pain is gonna come. But like, understand that it's easier to get through grief and move through grief when we just let it flow. I knew this guy, Adam Ward. Adam Ward was an artist. I don't even remember how I met Adam. I had a class with his girlfriend, Ting. And he asked me, I met Adam through her. And Ting broke up with Adam. And Adam, I was like, hey, are you okay? And Adam was like, I trust Ting enough to know that she's doing what's making her happy, and that's what I want for her. I was like, Adam Ward. Partially, I think that he said that because I think that he like wanted to date me, actually. But maybe I should hit up Adam Ward. but yeah, that's fucking beautiful. You can move on when you trust that everything is happening as it's meant to. And that was in the chart. You know, we have Pluto retrograde at 6 degrees in the 12th house. And Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at 6 degrees in the 12th house, square Mars, 6 degrees in Cancer in the 6th house. And it's going to be there until the 1st of July. And so while Mars is in Cancer, it is weakened, it is in its fall. I said this at the beginning of the live, but I'll show y'all for the first time in years. I took notes. I used to take notes when I was first learning to read charts, because I would like read charts for free. Yeah, the greatest love is to let go when it wants to be free. Exactly. And if it's meant to be, it will come back. But like, you gotta let things be free, because otherwise it's codependency and it's harmful. It hurts. You know what I mean? I used to read charts for free when I was like learning, and I would like write down all of my notes with like my Parker's astrology book. And I haven't been doing that, but like the reason why I'm doing it now is because I want to expand my comprehension of astrology, and therefore the cosmos of the universe. Therefore, this is to say that like expanding our consciousness and participating in the expansion of our consciousness, you know, getting past the boundaries of our fears. Like, oh, it might seem embarrassing at first, but who the fuck cares? Like I said, like, are you gonna sit here and listen to these 3D people who are indoctrinated into the false matrix, willing participants in their enslavement and exploitation? You know, like, God bless, I love you, but like, I'm not gonna listen to you, because you don't know what it takes to get free, because you're not free. And everything that you're saying clearly is trying to keep me in bondage with you. But I understand that you're scared for me because you care about me, but you don't care about and love yourself enough. You haven't reached that level of desperation for freedom and for liberation enough to participate in your own freedom at whatever cost. Malcolm X said, by any means necessary. You feel me? So this is a very divinely guided time. We're really being asked to trust God's timing and not assume negatively. Everything is going to be taken care of. It's also exciting when something you truly love reappears and you're like, OMG, I forgot how beautiful you were. And sometimes we fall out of, okay, so I'm gonna pause what I was saying and come to this real quick. We fall out of resonance with people. But if they're truly like divinely aligned with you, you know, we gotta go through our own journeys in order to come back into union with one another. Whether that is, and that union is gonna look different. It's always gonna look different when we come back together, okay? Because we're going through and they're going through their own evolution or devolution. Like, I've been talking for like 3 weeks at least about my relationship with my college best friend. When I first started uni, I met this girl, and literally it was kismet, because this was the school that I wanted to go to. NYU. I didn't get into NYU. I applied early decision, which was stupid because I didn't really have the grades for that. But because I was depressed and like it showed. But I didn't get in there, so I ended up going to this school that I did get into that I didn't really care about. I really didn't know anything about any of the schools that I applied to. I just knew I wanted to go to school in New York. And I just ended up at this school, and it ended up being the perfect place, and you know, it was divinely aligned. I ended up going to the International Students Orientation, not because I chose that. I just was like, I didn't pay for any of the other orientations because my mom didn't pay for it, so I ended up at that one because it was the last one. And I was in orientation, and I like turn around and I see this girl, and I'm like, do you watch Girls? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, you look just like Jessa from Girls. Snap. The spark flew, and we were best friends for like 5 years. But we fell out of resonance. And we stopped being friends. I decided I couldn't be friends with this person anymore. I ended up going through all of these really, really deep psychological, emotional, spiritual, mental shifts. And on the other side of that, I was able to forgive the things that she did and said, and like find compassion and grace and understanding for why she was the way that she was and why she had done the things that she had done. And, you know, in that time, she also evolved, maybe not to the same degree as myself, but became aware of the ways in which she had hurt me. And when we came back into each other's lives, she apologized to me. And I was able to also apologize to her for the things that I had done, because I was not perfect. I was not a saint in that relationship. We came back into resonance because we had changed. And then later on, I got a spirit was like that I needed to reach out to this person. And so I did. And it was the perfect timing. She really needed to hear from me, hear the message that I gave her, according to her. And then, you know, she was behaving in a flaky manner. And I decided I can be resentful about this, or I can just accept her for who she is and not have expectations that she never really agreed to fulfill. Or, I mean, actually, she's the one who was making the plans. So there would be that expectation, but like, I didn't have to have expectations of her. And so I chose not to. And, you know, I think then I ran into her on the street. And I think that she thought that I probably was like annoyed or mad at her because she had been really apologetic. And I didn't care. And so I was like, oh my God, hey, what's up? And she was really shocked about my response. And yeah, we had a great chat. It was very aligned and fulfilling and very sweet, I will say. It felt very magical to experience that specific day. And yeah, are we besties again? No. Do I love and care for her always? Yes, that's my soul sister. You know what I mean? Do we have to be besties? No. I'm not as codependent as I was. So I don't need that. And that's another thing that came up in the chart. I think that's with... So I'll just say that we have like a harsh triangle of fractious energy with Pluto retrograde squaring Mars, both at 6 degrees, and both of them making square, or sorry, did I say square? Yes. I actually meant to say opposition. They are in opposition to one another, but they are both squaring Jupiter at 6 degrees in the 3rd house in Aries. And so this is really talking about interdependence versus codependence. Hello. This is really talking about interdependence versus codependence. And what I wrote in my notes is like, this is really about with, you know, both of them exactly squaring Jupiter at 6 degrees in Aries in the 3rd house, actualizing self-sovereignty in relation to others. We can create the community we want to be a member of. And we can show up authentically as our most resonant, integrated self and be loved and accepted. And we can actualize interdependence so that it's actually sustainable. My relationships when I was codependent, driven by fear and lack and scarcity and desperation, were not sustainable. And that's why they don't exist anymore. Because I evolved and I transformed chrysalis energy. Watch the last live for the weekend. We talked about chrysalis energy. I'm pretty sure it was the weekend. But this is a rebirth, and we're coming to the final stages of that. And that's evident with these 6 degrees that we're at here. This is the purification, the final level. What I read was, with this exact opposition between Pluto and Mars, ongoing process of soul retrieval before the next phase into the wild unknown. And that was evident in the Sabian symbols for 6 degrees in Cancer and 6 degrees in Capricorn. But the thing is, like, we're at the threshold, we're at the gate. We are sitting right there, and I keep talking about, like, go back and watch the video that I did for the equinox, the astrology video specifically that I did for the equinox. And moving forward, I will do the separate tarot and astrology, because the astrology is about the cosmic energy. It's like you're cooking a stew, right? What's the energy in the stew, and what am I going to add to that to make it the best stew possible? It's the cosmic pot, the cosmic bag, as I call it. And so, you know, the tarot, that tells us the story of what's going on. The cosmic energy is a different story. But I had this analogy, and actually I might be able to show you if I still have the notes on my iPad. But essentially, I really feel like finding the notes is gonna, like, clarify this in a way that will be super easy to understand. But I do want to say that this has just been this phase from this quarter of the sun and the Earth's revolution, this 365 cycle, right? So that's the vernal equinox to the summer solstice. That's when this rebirth is going to happen. And so, like, slowly but surely, we are emerging from the chrysalis. Let me see if I can find, they really want to show you guys this. Maybe it's in Insights. It's probably in Insights. No. Yeah, so just so you know, I had all of these diagrams for the astrology, for the vernal equinox and the energy that we would be interacting with in that quarter. This is what I wanted to show y'all. So this is our domain, right? That's like the castle. Think about as that Hierophant energy. This is actually our pillar of light, our integrity, okay? So are you self-sovereign, or do you have some other entity? Are you self-possessed? Or are you possessed by some other entity? Are you possessed by the false matrix spirit of the demonic shadow empire? And if you are operating on behalf of the false matrix, if you are actualizing the false matrix through your actions, that is to say, instead of talking about, like, I've started using the term gender segregation, because I think that that is really helpful for people who are in a lower density consciousness in terms of cis heteropatriarchy relations and, like, gender relations, understanding that there's a reason why they want to keep us in binary opposition. And this is what we're learning is, like, a lot of these oppositions are because people are operating from these mindsets, as opposed to understanding energy, and energy as it manifests in a physical earth body vessel, particularly for us, for humans, okay? So who's running your castle? Are you the master of your domain, as they say on Seinfeld? You know, this is the colonization. You know what I mean? Like, I'm seeing it as, like, Craster in Game of Thrones. For some reason, I'm just seeing Craster, like, sitting on the throne. Because, yeah, I'm pretty sure that he, like, got the throne that he had in an unjust way. And then he continued to maintain it in an unjust way. And what happened to him? He and his whole family were muckducked. That was a reference to The Office. I guess we're doing a lot of references today. So, you know, anything that you get through nefarious means, through desperation, from fear, anything that you do from a disempowered state is only going to further disempower you. And the harder that you have to work to attain something, the harder you're going to have to work to keep it. And this is why we're really being called to be our most genuine, authentic self. And that's why I said this over the weekend, I'm not, you're not going to defang the goddess. You're really not. I'm done playing small. I'm done making myself small, putting a lampshade on me because I shine too bright for other people. And some of these people, I've known for a really long time, and I have no choice but to interact with them because they have access to things that I want to maintain a relationship with. But I have to understand, how much am I going to interact with those people, those beings, How much am I going to interact with the false matrix? As much as I can divest, I'm going to do in any given moment. But I have to understand that to a certain extent, at a certain point, going against the grain and being provocative and iconoclastic is actually causing me harm. And it's actually a trauma response. And I've talked about that before, months ago, when I started realizing that that was a maladaptive coping mechanism and a trauma response that I developed as somebody who is a lot of Scorpio placements. That was my trauma response. That was my defense, because I wanted to keep people away. I did not want intimacy because I was afraid of what love and intimacy would do to me. And now I know that that's not what was happening to me, was not happening by people who loved me, because they are not capable of love, because they don't love themselves even. And so I have compassion for that, and I have unconditional love for that, but you will never get access to me again. Least of all while I'm still healing from the destruction that was wrought upon me. And a lot of people keep trying to convince me that I should interact with these people again. I'm self-sovereign though. I don't need to do what they want me to do, because what the fuck do they know? Think about the person that you want to be, not the person you want to be even, because the person that you want to be might be very ego-driven. It might be completely based on the false matrix. Tap into your higher self. Who is your higher self? Okay, now take advice from people who are actually embodying your higher self in the here and now. There's nothing that a person who does not have financial stability can tell me to get me to financial security and stability. And this is what Spirit is saying. A lot of folks are listening to people who don't have the keys. You don't have the answers, Sway. They don't have the keys, but we still keep going back to those people as if they're going to give us what we want. We keep chasing our tail. We keep chasing that narrative, hoping that we can rewrite history. How about this? Leave history as it is. Rewrite your relationship to history so you can move on. And that's what this week's energy is giving. Okay? We're in our pillar of our integrity, our pillar of light, our spine. As I said before, Yoga with Adrienne talks about bringing integrity to our practice. And, maybe we're out in the courtyard. We want to lead. We want to expand. So we've expanded to this realm now. And so we're walking around, and it's I know that there's more out there. I've learned everything that there is to learn in here. I know that there's more out here. I know that there is. I got to figure out how to get out of here. You're walking around. And suddenly you just get tired. And in my notes, I wrote this. Because Mars is weakened in Cancer, because it's in fall, tiredness has made us clear on what our priorities are. When you don't have a bunch of energy to do all of the things that you want to do, you have to understand that it's time for you to just divert your energy to what you need to do. And it makes you get clear on your priorities and your values. When you are fully tired and fed up and exhausted with something, you're going to start to look for ways to mitigate that. What's draining my energy? And not just because you're physically exhausted, but this is a deep, deep exhaustion. Where it's like, I can only do 3 things. I want to do 10, but I can only do 3. At least I can do 3 of them to my best ability. Or I'm not even going to be able to do 10, so there's no point in trying. And then half-assing 5 of them, and then being so exhausted that the next day I don't even have energy for those 3 things I needed to do, and I only get the 1 thing done. And then it's building up, building up, building up. That doesn't make any sense. We have been in a process where we've been getting clear on what our values are and what our priorities are, what our needs and wants are. And that's about being in our integrity rather. What works for the fly might not work for the spider, boo. The first time I quit smoking weed, I was 18, and I was really afraid of psychosis because I was also awakening at that time. And what was happening was I was experiencing spiritual attacks. And regardless of whether I want to use scientific, psychological, false matrix terms, or my esoteric ancestral terms, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the result is the same. It was causing me harm, and I needed to stop. So I stopped. But at that time, my brother said to me, you know, what works for Jill might not work for Jane, and what works for Bobby might not work for Susie. And I had to become okay with that. And you know what my mom told me is like, those people that you were hanging out with, they weren't your friends. They were just people that you smoked weed with. And when the ish hit the fan, that turned out to be 100% true. When the going got rough, those people were not there for me. Period. Oh yeah, so people may disagree with this, but for me, substances lower vibration. Especially because, and that is, I'm even talking about like, I was even considering like antipsychotics in times where I was being spiritually attacked because it would bring me down consciousness wise, it would ground me more and it would bring me down so I wasn't operating in those spaces where I was being attacked. It would like shut me down enough that I would not be experiencing that. That's my experience. I think that anything that you ingest, you know, like also for me, the plant spirit worked for me in order to get me to stop drinking because I did start using plant medicine again. 4 years later, I was 22, 23, and within 6 months, everything changed for me. I came out to my family. Like, I even started realizing that I was non-binary. Like, I really started leveling up my life, and I quit drinking. And then rapidly, and I needed to, because I don't have a healthy relationship with substances physically. I could talk more about that, and I'll make a video about that. But plant medicine helped me with that. But when it was time for me to say goodbye to the plant medicine, it became very clear, because it told me that it was ready to be done. And if I wanted to continue doing it, I was going to hurt myself. And all of the tools were provided to me to end that relationship. The first time I ended it, I went kicking and screaming. It was graceless. The second time I ended it, I was also really mad about it. But I understood, you know what, I'm going to try this for a little while, and if I don't like it, I'm going to go back to doing it my way. And it turned out to be the best thing that I ever did in my life. But not for nothing, when I was 16, it helped me to transcend my trauma and get out of my body enough and get into spirit, into other forms of consciousness enough to understand that there was another reality for me, and that it expanded my consciousness enough that I was no longer stuck in the trauma and the fear. So it came in waves and it came in cycles, and it's for each and every one of us as individuals to figure out what that looks like for us. It's not for me to tell anybody anything about that substance use, right? But, you know, it's very clear and evident when somebody is addicted to something. As somebody who is in recovery from addiction and alcoholism, it's very clear and evident to me. But it doesn't matter if I tell someone anyway, because we need to be ready. A small handful of people tried to tell me, you know, you shouldn't do certain things anymore. But I wasn't ready. Then when I was ready, it was a lot easier. It was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And I have no doubts in my mind that it was the best thing that I've ever done for myself in my entire life. And it will always be. So it's about you and your relationship to it. And that may evolve and change and shift. But yeah, I hope that's helpful. I'm going to have to go soon. But so we get tired. Oh, yes. Tiredness. What's a value here? Lack of support and safety will not be tolerated. So, yeah, like when you're operating in survival mode, stop expending energy on things that are not helping you survive. Because that's the only way that you're going to get into thriving mode. Like, I was in survival mode and I was investing so much of my time and energy in relationships that were chaotic distractions. And they were completely destructive to my wellness and my well-being. And I stopped engaging with those people. My money went up exponentially. Like, my money went up, my life went up exponentially. And I had to go through these karmic cycles still. So, you know, I'm still up. I'm still up in comparison to where I was when I was interacting with those people. I went into no contact, and it is also one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And that's to say, like, I've talked about this before. This is a season that we've been in. These cords and these connections that people make, their emotional relationship connections, that are draining our sacral chakra. And we cannot produce effectively if our well is being drained. And so we've been being asked to go to the fountain. And then this is the fountain here. We don't realize that actually the wall is turning. And so maybe while we've been running around, we keep missing the door because it wasn't the right time. And Spirit is like, sit down now, okay? And we get tired and we sit down. And then we go on this internal process, this internal journey of soul retrieval and recollection. And this allows us to evolve and better develop within our integrity, within ourselves. And in that space, we're asked to offer ourselves greater compassion and more acceptance of self. And then there's more resonance of self. And our voice, our expression, our vibration becomes more clear. It rings true. And it rings true very vibrantly. Okay, we're talking about waves here. We're talking about waves. We're even talking about particles. Y'all have to understand, this is quantum physics. This is the way, this is Hermeticism, which is the basis of modern physics as we know it. And these people admitted to that. So that allows us to put out the signal more and more to attract the more harmonious and resonant kinship relationships. Okay, so we're sitting here and we're getting stronger because we're no longer expending energy needlessly. And little do we know that the wall is actually turning. We did our part by walking out of the castle. Now the wall is turning. That's the cosmic energy. And then suddenly the door appears, the gateway appears, the portal appears. And it's like, yes, that's the level up. Then we step outside. And once again, we're like, okay, so what's good? Like, hello? What did we learn in the last level? It's about divine timing. Listen, you don't want to, maybe, and this is on experimentation. So let's see where Uranus is in the chart. Uranus is at 25 degrees of Aries, 25 degrees and 24 seconds of Aries in the 3rd house. So this is really about advancing our relationship to the collective and to society. And this especially has to do, for me, being that it's the 3rd house, our ideations, our sociological ideations. Who is sovereign over you? Right? That's the key. The key is within you. It's not in anybody else. All that anybody else can do is reflect it back to you. Okay, so it's time, it's happening. Trust that it's happening. The portal to go through, you know, I keep talking about it. And I keep the song, once again, first class, I still see on the other side of the glass of my memories museum. Hey, Mona Lisa, come home. You know you can't run without Caesar. That song, I keep talking about also, like, through the looking glass. We're going through the mirror. Because we've been in a fun house. And the reason why I wanted to show the Hierophant, I was talking about the 𝗪𝗶𝗱𝗲 before. Getting into divine resonance within ourselves. Healing our heart chakra. Healing our polarities so that we can come into balance, masculine and feminine energy. And as we do it within ourselves, we do it for the collective. And we also give people the permission to show up as their authentic selves. Me, I'm a femme. So I'm always between high femininity and androgyny. When I had to be in my masculine to get through an extremely colonial institution that caused me tremendous harm, I showed up more in my masculine. I subconsciously, and I was extremely androgynous presenting in that time because I had to, like, not be in my feelings as much. Because if I was in my feelings so much, I would make decisions like dropping out of school. Yes, it is flashing lights. But yes, I would make decisions like dropping out of school, you know, and I had to have people reflect back to me like that those people didn't matter. The things that they were doing, the things that they were saying were reflective of them and their sickness and their lack of wellness. Jealousy is very garish. God don't like ugly. It doesn't matter how good you look on the outside. If your spirit is ugly on the inside, then it's not a good look. It's not a good vibe. And those people are unhappy and bitter within themselves. Okay? Like, and it's not attractive. So you can materialize anything that you want, really, especially by messing with the powers of the 𝗕𝗓𝗏. Of course you can, because they're going to reward you for being fucking terrible. But if you want to live a good, happy life, it's not even about being righteous. But righteousness is what cultivates and breeds joy and serenity. And I'm not talking about like morals here. I'm talking about being in line with the universe. As I said, this keeping ourselves small, this stagnation energy, that's counterintuitive and counterproductive to your wellness. Because the nature of the universe is expansion. It's literally always expanding. That's why it's infinite. And change, flux is the nature of our existence. any timeline is possible, because new timelines are always being created as the universe is expanding. But once again, you see in my notes, we're coming up to the summer solstice, so I'm going to make that video pretty soon. But I would really encourage folks to look at the spring, the vernal equinox video, and really just meditate and reflect on it and what was shared and how it applies, how it resonated, because it's going to make it clear to you what you really are being called to do in this next phase of your development, which is the final third of this quarter, before we walk on by, is what I'm hearing. Walk on by. Oh, and look, Ace of Pentacles. Yes, there was something that I diverged from that I wanted to come back to. Ancestral winds, because of the work that you've been doing. But if you are stuck in a part of yourself, it's time to shake it out. Like Florence and the Machine said, regrets collect like old friends, here to relive your darkest moments. I can see no way. I can see no way. And all of the ghouls come out to play. I'm going to look up the lyrics because I really want to communicate this. And every demon wants his pound of flesh, but I like to keep some things to myself. I like to keep my issues strong. I'm going to look it up. But it's always darkest before the dawn. And what did I say? The sun doesn't start rising and then just set again. That's never happened. Breaking dawn is another thing that I've been hearing over and over and over again. Okay, so the Hierophant, Judgment in reverse, Princess of Cups, Queen of Pentacles in reverse. Once again, the Hierophant, Judgment in reverse. Time to have compassion. Time to let the old narrative go. Okay, so because now with all of these karmic contracts being cleared, being null and void, you know what I mean? Like, if you had past life relationships, it's over now. And you are going to be the one who's deciding what goes on moving forward. Fear to be honest with ourselves goes both ways. And it creates blockages for manifestation because we project onto the world what is in our mind. What is your perception? Have you mastered your shadow? Or is it mastering you? Are you its slave? Is it using you to manifest itself or to materialize itself? Because you can choose to stop doing that by not doing it. And you can choose to materialize a better life for you and everyone around you by showing up and actually grounding the consciousness shifts that you've experienced in the 3D by doing it and being it. I don't like liars. Okay, you don't lie either. And yes, we fall down, but we get back up. It's a practice. Life is a practice. Okay? And we got to practice what we preach. We got to practice it though. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. But it's worth it. Wrapping up here. Right now, some of the relationships coming back are just reflections of parts of ourselves coming back to surfacing to be purged. They're coming back to see if you're still willing to embody them. Are you a hater? Did you used to be a hater and like lately you've been thinking like a hater? Tell that hateful energy, bye, bitch. You might be here, but I'm not materializing you. I'm not giving you any more power. I know folks like to say 𝗕𝗓. I'm not Nigerian, I'm not Yoruba, so I don't see any reason to use that language, but I don't give I don't give those parts of myself power anymore, and they start to atrophy, muscular atrophy. Stop using that muscle and it will go limp. And eventually it'll just fall off. Okay? So yes, this fear to be honest with ourselves goes both ways. We can be lying to ourselves about how great we are. And that's a disservice to everyone who's going to benefit by you accepting how great you are. And honestly, I'll tell you something, yay for all of the issues that I have with him, which have been developing over years. And okay, for all of the issues I have with him, I feel it as deeply as I do because when I was 16 and I saw VH1 Storytellers and he performed 808s and Heartbreaks, he became my hero because he saved my life. And he said, people are going to tell you ain't shit, and you got to say, I am the shit. And that was my mantra, that was my motto. Because hip-hop saved my life, dead ass. Hip-hop saved my life. I cried in my dorm room to 𝗔𝗕𝗢𝗍 when I was 18, and I was like, I'm gonna have to drop out of college because I can't afford this. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna have to go back to this abusive, toxic environment. I'm gonna have to go back to that small pond. And finally, I'm a little fish in a big pond, which is exciting for me because it's a fucking playground. I get to play. I get to grow. I get to be in alignment with my soul's purpose, with the universe. And then I become a big fish in a small pond, and then I get to jump into a bigger pond again. So I know how to do New York. Then it's time to move out of New York. And that's a scary idea to me. I've done it multiple times for periods of time, but I always come back to New York because that's my home. That's a scary idea to me, but I have proven to myself that I can do it. So it's no longer I'm codependent on it, and I have to be there in order to be well. Despite any ways that I'm experiencing harm, because that's me just recreating that toxic upbringing, that toxic space that I escaped. I can go anywhere in this world. If I know who I am and what I want, the opportunity will always arise for me to step into. It's just a matter of if I'm going to step into it or not, or if I'm going to allow fear to keep me from doing that with that Ace of Pentacles energy. So this fear to really show up as ourselves, you're not serving anyone, you're not serving yourself. Nobody likes to be around somebody who is honestly, nobody likes to be around somebody who's disempowered because it disempowers them. The only people who like that are narcissists and codependents. And nobody likes being around them. Find the people who encourage you to be the best version of yourself. Not the people who benefit from you being the worst version of yourself, the self-hating, self-loathing, scared version of yourself because it validates them and how much they hate themselves and how scared they are. You know what I mean? People have tried to tell me, you're not a goddess, blah, blah, blah. I beg to differ. I don't need you to know what I know. People have tried to tell me that the magics of my ancestors isn't real. I've seen it firsthand. You may not have seen it. You may not believe it. Doesn't mean that it's not real. And so this brings me to this Hierophant energy. The warped third eye projects onto everything its distortions. And it keeps 3D manifestations from materializing, at least in their full integrity. And so in this time, we've been experiencing a process of trusting self and bypassing those structures. That's what I talked about in Curses and Contracts, and how telling the truth, speak truth to power. You materialize the truth in the 3D. You knock down those veils. You knock down those illusions, those glamours. Why do you think Venus rules Libra, 7th house, the throat chakra. You speak truth to power, and you break down those lies. False matrix lies. Yeah, they're going to come for you. Anybody who is possessed of the false matrix is going to come for you. The fuck do I care who comes for me? Come for me. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I don't have to lift a finger, but I'm a child of God, boo. And my ancestors, my higher power does not play about me. And if your higher power plays about you, it's time to fire them and get a new one. If your ancestors, if your spirit team play about you, it's time to fire them and get a new one. Because they're not your higher power. They're your lower power. They're deluding you. They're tricking you to serve them. Anything that doesn't boost, like, gas you right now, bye. I don't got time. Don't play in my face. When I was still in school, I used to say it this way, like, I was a full-time student. I had 3 jobs. I was running my business and my freelance art career. I put out an EP, for God's sake, in that time. Meanwhile, showing up for my spiritual life, my social life. I don't have time for nobody to be playing in my face. And now I have less going on, and I still don't have time for anybody to be playing in my face. Why? Because my time is valuable. Time and energy is the true currency. And until we realize that, you'll always be broke. You'll always be broke. You might get money and you'll lose it. And even if you get material gain, you're going to be spiritually broke. You're always going to have fake people in your life. You're always going to have terrible situations happening to you. Like, I know someone who's very wealthy, and terrible situations always happen to them. Always. Spiritual brokenness. Okay, and I want also to extend this compassion, because folks need to understand too that, like, once again, sometimes the material is as it is because of the contracts that we wrote and that we were in, and some of those contracts we were tricked into, and some of these contracts, like, you know, they just needed to run their course. We're not going to have a lot of energy, but don't allow anybody to disempower you. Don't allow anybody, like, this isn't the time to go out and do things so much. This is more so the time to, like, really be present for yourself. And if you feel a lot of triggers and stuff, I want you to know that those are opportunities arising for you to do some self-reflection and to shift those narratives. Okay? Lean into failure, because that's where the medicine is. Lean into fear. I'm not saying jump in and stay there and get sick. I'm saying go swim into that, grab the medicine, open that vial, and let the light free. Cast out those shadows. Show up for yourself, because that's where you're most needed. The parts of you that are broken, that are hurting, are the parts where you're most needed. Your job does not need you more than those parts of you need you. Okay? The people who don't have anything to offer you do not need you more than your scared inner child. So if people, as I said, if people have a warped sense of who they are, of who you are, they also have a warped sense of who they are as well, and they don't understand the way that the world works. So don't even worry about them. Do not invest any energy into that. Think of it that way. Investment. If you wouldn't put your money in that pot, if you wouldn't cast a ballot for that, don't give it any time or energy. And if it's on your mind, if it's on your heart, journal about it. Call a trusted person and talk about it. Vent, get it out, but stay solutions oriented. Because guess what? You don't hit the big jackpot by playing it safe and taking the easy route. You never do. And it's time for the big jackpot for a lot of us. So if you are in the group of people who's been doing the work, keep doing the work. You're probably very exhausted, and you're probably just like, oh, Spirit keeps saying all these good things are coming to me, but where is it? Just don't let any of the false matrix lies make you think that like shit is fucked up for you. Don't let the false matrix get you out of your pillar of light, out of your integrity, where you are aligned with Spirit and the universe. Because when I think back, okay, I'm uncomfortable right now, but when I think back on every time that I was uncomfortable, shit got real popping for me immediately after. We go through those cycles, you know what I mean? And we're being liberated. And in a lot of people's lives are being liberated to the point that that kind of downfall is contingent upon if we want it to be. 5 of Pentacles. Is this? Okay, yes. 5 of Pentacles in the reverse. It's the end of this suffering in the material world. But you have to choose it. You have to say yes. In every fiber of your being, you have to choose it. From the mundane to the occult, the esoteric, you know, the big extrapolations, all of it matters. Bring that sense of divinity to everything that you do and everything that you say. Just checking to make sure that I hit everything in my notes. And I think that I did, but with the Sun trining Pluto and then sextiling Mars later this week, we're really going to be shining bright. This is really pushing out all of that old karma, all of that low vibrational density stuff. So you might be having uncomfortable experiences and triggers, as I said, but that's what that is, and that's how you show up for that. As I said, solutions oriented. Think about deal with it the way that your higher self would deal with it. Your higher self is not going to be catty and mean and rude. They're just going to be in their power. And someone who's in their power doesn't even lower themselves to deal with bullshit. Tell you that much. The moon is going to be transiting through Cancer and Leo this week. So there is going to be a lot of being tired, sleepy, cozy energy. And as I said, when we get to the other side of that, like there's going to be such a sense of empowerment and clarity as to who we are and how we want to move forward. If there's conflict that comes up